Shark attacks are rare, but when they happen, they're absolutely terrifying. These aren't just accidents. They're moments of pure horror that unfold in the blink of an eye, leaving devastation in their wake. In this video, we're counting down the 5 most horrifying shark-related deaths ever recorded. From sudden ambushes in crystal-clear tropical waters to brutal encounters shockingly close to shore, these attacks ended in ways so gruesome and unforgettable that they still haunt the world to this day.
Friends stared out to sea in disbelief on Thursday after the death of 20-year-old David Lillianfeld near Cool Bay on the False Bay.
It was supposed to be a perfect day, a day of sun, surf, and salt-kissed air, the kind of day David Lillianfeld lived for. At just 20 years old, David was no stranger to the ocean. A champion bodyboarder, he had grown up riding the waves of South Africa's rugged coastline, fearless and free. On that fateful afternoon at Coil Bay, east of Cape Town, David and his brother Gustav paddled out together, brothers bonded by their love of the sea. The water was calm, the sky clear, and nothing hinted at the horror that was about to erupt beneath the surface. Then it happened, in a flash too fast to process. A dark, monstrous shape loomed from the depths. A great white shark, massive and ancient, at least 16 feet long, broke from the shadows of the sea. There was no warning, no time to react. The shark lunged with primal force, its jaws clamping onto David and dragging him under the water in a swirl of froth and blood. Witnesses on the beach watched, frozen in terror, unable to help as the ocean seemed to swallow him whole. Gustav, just meters away, saw everything. The fear, the chaos, the desperate struggle. He paddled with all his strength, fighting the waves and his own panic, determined to reach his brother. When he finally did, he found David grievously wounded. The shark had torn away his right leg completely, severed clean below the hip. The sea that had given them so much had, in an instant, taken nearly everything. Together with friends and horrified bystanders, Gustav hauled David onto the jagged rocks, shouting for help, hoping against hope that there was still time. But the damage was too great. Before medics could arrive, David slipped away, leaving his brother and father devastated on the shore. His right leg was never recovered, lost to the deep. As the tragedy sank in, anger and grief rippled through the community. The peaceful waters of Coil Bay had been disturbed in the days before by a controversial shark documentary being filmed nearby. The crew, eager for dramatic footage, had used chum and bait to lure great whites close to shore. Too close. Experts had warned that this could provoke danger, that bringing predators into human waters was a gamble with lives. One shark author, Dirk Schmidt, had pleaded for the project to be stopped, terrified that it would lead to disaster. And now, here it was, his nightmare realized in the most brutal, heartbreaking way. In the aftermath, confusion reigned. Permits were revoked, the documentary was scrapped, and officials scrambled to distance themselves from the tragedy. Some claimed the filming had nothing to do with the attack. Others weren't so sure. National Geographic denied involvement, but the damage was done. A young man, beloved by his family and admired by his peers, was gone. His final moments played out in the most terrifying way imaginable, in front of his brother, in front of the world. And as always, the ocean returned to calm, the waves washing over the blood-stained rocks, as if trying to erase what had happened. But for those who were there that day, for Gustav, for David's family, for the witnesses on the beach, the memory would remain forever. A chilling reminder that beneath the beauty of the sea lies a world of untamed, unforgiving power.
"46-year-old Damian Johnson was out diving for scallops with his 20-year-old daughter when a great white shark, estimated to be 14 feet long, attacked and ate him alive."
On July 25, 2015, a serene Saturday morning draped the eastern coast of Tasmania in the soft glow of dawn. Damian Johnson, 46 years old, a seasoned diver from Kingston near Hobart, set out on what should have been another joyful chapter of his lifelong romance with the ocean. At his side was his daughter, Olivia, a young woman in her early 20s who shared his deep love for the mysteries hidden beneath the waves. Together they were bound not just by blood, but by this passion for the sea. The evening before had been filled with excitement. Damian had sat with his family, spinning tales of the ocean's wonders, describing the beauty of the world that waited below the surface. Olivia listened closely, her eyes alight with anticipation. The sea had called to them both, and now they were answering. To those who knew him, Damian was more than just an experienced diver. His brother-in-law, Andrew Painter, remembered him as a careful man, someone who respected the ocean's power and never took reckless chances, especially not when his daughter was at his side. As dawn broke, father and daughter launched their boat, its hull slicing through the calm, silvered water as they made their way toward Lachlan Island and the shores of Maria Island. The salty breeze filled their lungs. The only sounds were the soft hum of the motor and their quiet, eager conversation. They reached their chosen spot, a place Damian knew well, where the sea whispered promises of hidden treasures. Without hesitation, they slipped beneath the surface, leaving the world above behind. Down in the crystal-clear depths, the silence of the ocean wrapped around them like a dream. Side by side, their movements graceful and in sync, they scoured the seabed for scallops, the simple rhythm of their task binding them even closer. The surface, the boat, the sky, they all seemed so far away as if the two of them were alone in another world. But the sea has its secrets, and that morning it chose to reveal one. It began with an eerie stillness, a sudden shift in the water that sent a ripple of unease through Olivia's heart. She turned, searching for Damian, but he was gone. The empty space where he had been moments before filled her with cold dread. Panic surged through her veins as she shot to the surface, her eyes wild, scanning the horizon, praying for any sign of him, but there was nothing. Just the endless stretch of water, calm and indifferent. Driven by fear, by love, by desperation, Olivia took a breath and dove back down, and there, in the deep blue, she saw it. A massive shark, its jaws stretched open in a nightmarish vision of power and hunger. Her father was caught in its grip, and the sea swallowed her scream as she witnessed the unthinkable. In that moment, the ocean that had always been their friend became a place of horror. Olivia burst to the surface again, her mind racing, her hands trembling as she fired the flare skyward. The bright red light cut through the dawn, a cry for help against the vastness of the sea. Nearby, fishermen and divers spotted the signal. Their hearts sank as they rushed toward her, knowing they might already be too late. Together, they worked in grim silence, hauling Damian's body up by his air hose, every movement heavy with sorrow. Back on shore, word spread. The community, so used to looking at the sea with love, now looked at it with grief. Damian's family, surrounded by friends, struggled to make sense of the loss.
Two teenagers spearfishing in Australia are attacked by a massive great white shark after killing one of the boys.
In the quiet, untamed stretch of Chains Beach along Western Australia's rugged southern coastline, the early morning sun bathed the water in gold, casting a warm, deceptive calm over the sea. 17-year-old Jay Muskat was alive with excitement. The ocean was in his blood, its mysteries a part of him. He called himself just a young, salty dog on Instagram, but to those who knew him, Jay was much more than that. He was the kind of person whose love for the sea was infectious, whose joy made others believe in the magic of the ocean. At his side was his close friend, Matt Peller, another soul drawn to the deep, sharing Jay's passion for spearfishing, for discovery, for the wild and beautiful world below the waves. That morning, Jay and Matt prepared with care as they always did. Their gear was checked, then checked again. They knew the sea could be unpredictable, but nothing, not experience, not caution, not love, could prepare them for what was coming. As they slipped into the clear, cold water, the worries of the world melted away. They were weightless, free. The seabed below was a dreamscape of color and movement, a place where time seemed to stop, where two friends could lose themselves in the rhythm of the hunt, the pulse of the sea. For a time it was perfect. Their laughter rose in bubbles to the surface, their easy banter carried by the currents. But then, in a heartbeat, everything changed. From the depths came a shadow, massive, silent, unstoppable. A great white shark, 4, maybe 5 meters long, emerged from the blue like something from a nightmare. Its black, unfeeling eyes locked onto Jay. There was no warning, no chance. The shark surged forward, and in a single brutal instant, its jaws clamped down, and Jay was gone. Matt saw it happen, saw his friend ripped from the world in the space of a breath, and then the shark turned on him. The ocean was no longer a playground. It was a battleground. Matt's heart pounded. His instincts took over. As the shark bore down on him, he raised his spear gun, aimed, fired. The spear found its mark. The shark, stunned and bleeding, twisted and vanished into the deep. The silence that followed was deafening. Matt, trembling, his mind reeling, swam to Jay's side, but the sea had taken too much. The vibrant boy who'd laughed with him moments ago was still now, the water around them stained with loss. Matt didn't stop. Somehow, through the shock and horror, he managed to fire a flare. Its red light tore across the sky, a desperate cry for help. Fishermen nearby saw it, their hearts sinking as they raced to the scene. Together, they brought Jay back to shore, but it was too late. The sea had claimed him. News of the attack swept through the beach community like a cold wind. Friends and family stood in stunned silence, staring out at the waves that had always seemed so beautiful, so full of promise. Now those same waves whispered a darker truth. The sea gives, but it can just as easily take.
A teenage boy has died after being bitten by a shark while surfing north of Coffs Harbour on the New South Wales mid-north coast.
The golden hues of early summer bathed Campbell's Beach near Coffs Harbour, New South Wales, in soft, shimmering light. It was November 30th, 2013, a day that seemed made for adventure. 19-year-old Zach Young, with his bright grin and boundless spirit, stood at the edge of the sea, his heart beating in rhythm with the waves. The ocean was home to Zach, a place where he felt alive, free, unstoppable. His friends, drawn to his energy like moths to flame, laughed and teased as they paddled out together, chasing the perfect wave under a sky that seemed to smile down on them. The sea welcomed them that morning, its surface glinting like glass, its waves rolling in with a promise of exhilaration. Zach led the way, bodyboard beneath him, eyes sparkling with the thrill of the ride. It was their sanctuary, the ocean, the sun, the salt on their skin. A place where worries vanished, where only the now existed. They felt untouchable, carried by the rhythm of the tide, lost in the sheer joy of the moment. But the sea, for all its beauty, holds secrets. And sometimes it reminds us just how small we are. Without warning, the mood shifted. Out of the depths, a shadow emerged, silent, ancient, lethal, a shark. A creature as old as the ocean itself, driven by instinct, by hunger, by the merciless laws of the deep. In a blink, the dream shattered. The water that moments ago had cradled them turned cold, foreign, dangerous. The shark struck with terrifying precision. One instant, Zach was chasing waves. The next, he was caught in the jaws of nature's raw, unrelenting force. The attack was brutal, savage. Blood clouded the water. His legs gone, his strength fading. The sea that had always been his refuge had turned against him. His friends, gripped by horror, were plunged into a waking nightmare. Time twisted, slowed, every second stretching into forever as they fought the impossible. With shaking hands, they dragged Zach's broken body to shore, their hearts pounding, minds screaming. Desperation fueled them. Hope clung to them like a thread about to snap. They pressed their hands to his chest, breathed life into his lungs, begged the universe for mercy. But the ocean had already claimed him. Zach's heart faltered, then fell silent, cardiac arrest. Just like that, the boy who had lit up their lives was gone. The boy who had lived for the sea, who had found joy in every wave, was still. His friends knelt beside him, their hands stained with salt and blood, their faces etched with disbelief. The beach that had echoed with their laughter only moments before now stood silent, the waves breaking with cruel indifference. As they carried him away from the water, grief wrapped around them like a heavy shroud. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the sand. The ocean kept moving, endless and uncaring. But for those who loved Zach, it would never be the same. That stretch of shore would always be the place where part of them was lost, where the fragility of life was laid bare, where the sea took someone who should have had so many more days, so many more waves to ride.
A man who was reported missing is believed to have died in a shark attack off South Australia's Eyre Peninsula. The 46-year-old school teacher, identified as Simon Bachanelo, went for a morning surf but never returned.
It was just after 10 a.m. on May 13th, 2023. The morning sun bathed Walker Rock Beach on South Australia's Eyre Peninsula in a warm, golden glow. The sea glistened under a cloudless sky. Among the dozen or so surfers who answered that call was 46-year-old Simon Bachanelo, a man beloved in the small town of Elliston. A teacher, a mentor, a friend, Simon had only been in Elliston since January, but in those few months, he had woven himself into the fabric of the community, teaching math, science, and physical education at the local school, inspiring students with his passion and kindness. That morning, like so many before, Simon went in search of the joy and peace that only the ocean could give. The water felt alive, pulsing with energy. Simon paddled out, joining the others. There was laughter, the kind of camaraderie born of shared respect for the sea. But beneath the surface, unseen, something ancient stirred. It happened in a heartbeat. a shadow rising from the deep. A great white shark, massive, unstoppable, driven by instinct older than time. Before anyone could react, the predator struck. The water exploded into chaos. The shark thrashed violently, the sea stained red. Simon's surfboard, once his shield against the waves, now stood upright. Tombstoning, they call it. A grim sign that its rider was being dragged down. Simon fought with everything he had, desperate to break free, desperate to breathe. But the shark came again, and again. 3 times it attacked, each strike more brutal than the last. The other surfers could only watch in horror, powerless against the nightmare unfolding just meters away. Jaden Miller, one of them, saw it all. The violence, the struggle, the awful finality of it. His voice cracked as he shouted for help, though he knew deep down that help might already be too late. And even in his final moments, Simon's instinct was to protect. He'd shouted a warning to nearby swimmers, including a 13-year-old boy, urging them to get to safety. His last act, selflessness. The sirens came quickly. Helicopters sliced through the sky. Boats skimmed the waves. Emergency crews, police, volunteers, all drawn together by the same terrible purpose. They searched with grim determination, combing the shoreline, scanning the water. Pieces of wetsuit, fragments of white polystyrene, a surfboard bearing a massive bite through its center. These were the only signs of what had happened. No second chance. In the days that followed, the town of Elliston, a town of fewer than 400 souls, fell under a shadow of grief. Flowers appeared along the sand, quiet tributes from broken hearts. The school where Simon taught struggled to comprehend the loss. His students, his colleagues, his friends, all of them grappling with the cruel reality that a man who gave so much could be taken so suddenly. They remembered his easy smile, his boundless energy, the way he inspired, encouraged, lifted those around him. He wasn't just a teacher, he was part of them. And now, gone. The search stretched on. Hope flickered, then dimmed. Authorities knew that whatever the sea hadn't hidden might wash ashore. In time, they said, the search would end, and the focus would turn to the inquest. But no one wanted to let go. Not yet. Not of Simon. And as the community mourned, the ocean kept its secrets. The waves rolled on, indifferent. The same sea that had given so many moments of joy had turned in an instant into something merciless. Those who knew Simon would never look at it the same way again. Where others saw beauty, they would remember the cost, and in their hearts, Simon would always be there, etched in the salt and the spray. A man who lived fully, gave freely, and was lost too soon to the vast, untamed deep.